Hey guys, welcome back to Indies Nuts. Today we are going to be breaking down There Is No Game. We have played through a big chunk of it. Victor played through probably about a third to half of the game. I finished it
Yes.
maybe about an hour ago, not that long ago. So we're going to talk about our impressions on this game. Victor, you want to start us off on this one? What's your impression so far as someone who's still in the midst of it?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about the impressions I have. First off, I want to say it's slow. It is slow moving. That is the first word that comes to mind for me. I am not a fan of what do you call those? Like the clicking adventure games? Uh
Clicker, yeah, clicker
Clickers?
games.
I'm not
Wait,
generally
do you mean
a
like the ones where you're tapping click a lot, or you mean like point and click games?
Yeah, see, I can't tell because I had to tap click so much this game that
Yeah.
was I wish I had an auto clicker on like I would have used for
Yes.
one of those
Well,
random.
let's break this down because to the two of us that makes sense, but to anyone who hasn't played the game, they're going to be lost.
Yeah.
So, when you go through the game, the way that this game works is it is a story about you being a user, much like in, let's say, Reboot, if you've ever seen that show, where you are the person that is playing the game and you are going against a person named Game who is the one that is in charge of orchestrating the experience that you have. Well, in the beginning of the game, the character tells you, I don't want you to play this game, so I'm going to block
Yeah.
you from playing it.
It is a fourth wall, a game played at, like without a fourth wall. You are it's
You
not
are
like
you,
Undertale
yeah.
in that you assume and everything talks to you and you have an avatar. You are you. You are the player. The user is the character. You're referred to as the user by the character of the game. Right.
So,
In the narrative.
how the story works in this game is that you go through different scenarios. I believe there's seven. I could be wrong. My Switch isn't turned on right now, or I would check. But it is divided into different scenarios. Each scenario plays like a slightly different type of game. So one of them plays very similar to the old LucasArts point and click adventures. One of them plays like a Legend of Zelda style game, but you're controlling it indirectly. There's one that was very creative where you're playing through like a series of credits, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But overall, the story of the game, the pacing of the game as you're going through these worlds, it's not very good.
No, it's not clean. It's frustrating. For a
it
guy like me who generally doesn't like games that I'm not a big fan of strategy games as a genre, generally speaking. That's fine. I respect them. They're great. And sometimes I like to play them. And I do. I have played plenty of RTS, in the past. But even more deeper strategy based board games, etc. Occasionally I like to play those too. This game was a chore. It just was. And the fact that it was almost like half of a chore and then half of it was enjoyable setups was almost more frustrating. I almost
yeah,
wish the whole thing was bad, and then I could
that's
have been early about my judgment and been like, oh yeah, you know what, this is just, I don't know,
I
I
I
don't know if it's
think that's
worth
the
it.
thing. Like Victor and I were talking about this right before we got into the record that I wish that this game or that this guy would have another game after this because I think that this game has a lot of nuggets of really good things. I actually think that the puzzle design, oh, for the most part, not completely, but for the most part, is very good, very clever.
Yeah,
He did some stuff that I haven't seen before. That level I mentioned that plays like the Legend of Zelda, I actually very much enjoyed that part. I thought that there were some
sure.
very clever puzzles in there,
Oh
but
yeah, dude. Like the
it
hidden runes, for example, without spoiling anything. I thought that
exactly.
was
I thought that was
really,
a really
really
cool puzzle.
nice.
I might actually
Yeah.
try to steal something like that for my D&D game, but
Oh, it's good.
um, I thought that Cornell, if you're listening, ignore that part. That's one of the players in my game. Um, the issue is that the for every moment that is really good, there is a moment that is very slow, very hard to get through. And as the game progressed, I felt like it slowed down more and more, and it focused more and more on the story. The story is about the character Game and fighting this like virus guy or bug or glitch. Mr. Glitch is his name.
Mr. Glitch,
And
right?
you're also learning about the backstory of this guy and this girl that he loved and stuff like that. But the problem is the story, it didn't add anything to the game. It wasn't particularly good. And the parts where they started getting into story heavy stuff, it just felt like they slammed on the brakes in the game. And it made it very not bad, but not awkward or anything like that, but just the word Victor used before we started the record was tedious. Like it made the game feel tedious, and that's not great.
Yeah, I stand by that. You know, the word tedious is never a word you want to associate with gameplay. You know, I'm not, and again, like I had said before, like being detail oriented, getting overloaded with information. There are like some people love that. That's fine. This is not a case of that. This is a case of monotony ruining the experience, which is not good. And like case in point, when you use items to maneuver through the world, you have to test items out whenever you're at a crossroads.
Yeah, like a normal point and click game. You're gonna try throwing everything at the wall when you get stuck, right? Like
yeah, and each time you do, you drag an item up from the floor and you have to drop it onto whatever you can interact with in the background. However, all of the items you can use are then stacked up on top of each other because they're in the same plane of existence, which is in front of the game in the sort of user's plane of tools.
The reason why it does that is because there are puzzles where you have it physically on the screen does matter. There are times where you have to drop things or go from different heights or different areas of the screen, which is clever. But the problem is as Victor mentioned, when you're dragging things to the same spot and they're all falling in a pile, there are times, especially during the point and click adventure, the LucasArts one, where you had like 8 items falling on the same thing. And so then if I need one of those items, I have to manually drag 7 of them out of the way to be able to use it. I think that's one of those things that could have been cleaned up by just having a bar at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. A bar on the bottom, or they have they have the pause button and the hint button in a separate, thing, and they bring that up. Like they mess with that a couple times, but those are pretty much universally there as non-game related icons.
Yeah.
And then they also, so it's not, obviously there was the decision that some things have to be in the interface that are just for the user outside of the experience of the game, as opposed to having some cheeky joke about it. And then you have, so it's not impossible to see that this was a choice, and I think ultimately we both agree it was not a good choice. Again, one of the things that I want to stress is we both played it on the Switch. The Switch, it's more tedious to use the joysticks, although it's smooth and it's not necessarily difficult to interact with the game using the joysticks. But in situations where you're not in handheld mode and you're not using touch mode to move through the screen, it's more difficult to move the joystick down, grab something, move it over, move the joystick down, grab something, move it over. It's not very fast. There's a set mouse, like a indicator speed for whatever your,
and I don't believe you can speed that up. I don't believe there's an option for that.
Right. There isn't. There isn't one.
Now, we had very different experiences with that because I played the game almost entirely in handheld mode. Victor played docked because he was recording some of the footage for it that you'll probably be seeing right now playing. When I played through it, I played in handheld mode. It does have touchscreen controls, and it makes it way better. The only downside to the touchscreen controls is that when you're playing using a controller, you have like a little blue dot that indicates where your cursor is, right? When it goes over something that can be interacted with, it gets slightly bigger so that like, oh, there's something I have to do with this. When you're playing with the touchscreen, that doesn't happen. That cursor disappears. You wouldn't be able to see it anyway because it'd be under your finger. So it disappears unless you push a button. So you're kind of just clicking all over the place. I honestly think it's better. I played with both, but I preferred using the touchscreen. The problem is that I think you will run into if you are playing this on Switch in docked mode, rather than playing it on PC or with the touchscreen, is that in later parts of the game, there are things that are speed based, and you did not get that far in the game, Victor. And
Okay.
I honestly, as I was playing, I was like, I don't know how you would do this part using the joystick. I don't
There
see
was,
how it would be
yeah,
possible.
there was already the one puzzle to get in the Legend of Zelda world style world. There was one puzzle where you had to interact with a few items to like sort of clear a path to reach a door, and that was tight. Even that was tight.
Oh yeah, I
So
didn't even think of that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I'm thinking, oh man, I just remember sitting there being frustrated when I did figure it out. It's like, well, not all the way, dude. And you're like, oh god. So it just the Switch might just not be the best console for it for what
I
it
would
is.
recommend, if you play it on the Switch, only play it in handheld mode, only play it with the touchscreen. If you're not going to do that, just play it on PC. If you play it at
Sidebar,
all.
my t-shirt is super stretched out. I am a father and I have a child. I just want to say I see that in the video now. My neck is like 2 inches revealed on the side. So
I thought you were trying to get those clicks, dude.
I know, right? I don't want to be too scandalous.
Oh, I
you know,
didn't see you there. I
yeah,
was just playing this
yeah.
game.
Unless
But
yeah. Yeah.
what's
Oh
wrong,
man.
Step in these nuts?
Oh. Oh
All right.
man.
Well, let me go through some of the things because, like I said, I finished the game. I took some notes here. We'll talk about some of the
Let's
stuff
do
that
it. Burn through
I.
them. Let's do it, Jonna. Let's
So
hear what you
the
got.
first one that I had here was, and you may disagree with me. I did not like the voice acting in this game. I didn't think.
Oh
It was
no, I was gonna
particularly
say
good.
that. I was waiting to say it while we're recording. The voice acting being okay. The characters in the game who talked that were part of the games, I didn't have a problem with. Like at one point, there's like a facsimile of some very famous detectives. I didn't think those.
Oh,
were
those
too
guys
bad.
were fine. Yeah, those ones
Right.
were fine. And
But we're
actually, in the
talking
credits,
about
you see that those guys didn't film or didn't record their voices with the other people in the
interesting
game. Yeah,
and funny. And maybe because they're professionals
yeah,
and
I
the other
think they
people
might have been.
probably the guy who they have to record the game. You know, it was kind of funny. But then they have the same exact it's got to be the same guy doing Mr. Glitch.
Oh yeah, it is. They actually
And
point that out later in the game, and this is really going to drive you crazy. In the second to last chapter of the game, there is a
I'm ready.
third person with the same voice.
Dude, and like I don't want to be mean about it, but I assumed that guy is the game designer
I'm assuming,
is the
yeah.
game designer and or his buddy who's like, dude, I'll help you out here. I'll throw you a bone by you throwing me a bone, and I'll do the voice work. And it works if this were like $6 or this were free or something to that effect. But for a game that is now available on a wide scale, I want more. I want more.
I
want a
will
polished
say,
voice
in their
experience.
defense, again, the people who play the two other characters in the point and click section, they did a good job. And
Yep.
later in the game, there's a woman's voice, and she did a very good job. I thought that she was excellent. The problem is that the overwhelming majority of the game is this one guy talking, and his
Yes.
voice sounds like someone doing a bad Strong Bad impersonation from Homestar Runner, and I don't know. I'm not sure if that's that guy's actual voice. I apologize if he ever sees this. I'm sorry about that, but it didn't suit the game, and I didn't like that. I will also say that there were a couple of other parts where they had other voice acting work. Where there's one part in the beginning of the game where you're seeing the title in different languages and stuff like that. And there were a few jokes and gags in there that were pretty funny and used the other voices and other characters, but that's very, very limited in the game. There were a few moments in this game that did genuinely make me laugh. One of them, for example, that's not a spoiler, is at one part you're looking at different motherboards from different countries, and the one from Japan has like a pixelated out
Oh,
area.
pixel. Yeah, that was good.
On the motherboard.
That was good.
I laughed.
There's a
pretty
lot of
hard
good
at
little
that.
jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem for me is that this game is overwhelmingly a comedy game, and I don't think that it sticks that landing often enough to justify being a comedy game. I think the thing is that comedy is very hard to do in video games because comedy is about timing, and it's hard to get
Yeah.
that timing when you don't know when people are going to be doing things. And as we said, one of the big issues in this game already is the pacing and is the timing.
Yeah.
And so
And it gets a little Melissa McCarthy in that they hammer some of these jokes until
you're done.
They're done. They're done. It's too much.
There
It
are a
is too
couple
much.
parts in the game too where they will try to be like tongue in cheek about it. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I hate when a joke is repeated," and when they're repeating the joke for the seventh time, or like, "Oh, I hate when developers are lazy and use a puzzle the same way 2 or 3 times in a game." And I'm like, making that observation doesn't excuse the fact that that's still annoying, that it's still not good game design. And so for me, I've played games that have done comedy much better, games like The Stanley Parable or games like West of Loathing that really nailed the comedy aspect of it. And it felt, like you said, much like a Melissa McCarthy movie, like it was trying a little bit too hard.
I want, for the
to be
record,
funny.
for
I
one
love
of the
Melissa McCarthy in a
worst
lot
movies,
of movies.
one of the
to
worst
be fair,
because
but
she's good in a lot of movies. Spy, hilarious.
Spy is great.
Okay,
If you've never seen
Yeah.
that movie, it's excellent.
I even watched like Thunder Force on Netflix, and I think she was nothing near the problem of that movie. She was actually
I didn't
she did
watch
a
that
wonderful
movie. It
job.
looked
It's
terrible.
okay, don't watch it. It's fine. I was really bored, and it was like okay, but like, but again, she was okay. She was great. But if they just, I don't know if that's her or if they're just directing her to basically just tell a joke and then
I don't
bring
know
up
what it
the
is.
joke
She's a good comedian.
many
It's just,
times. Yeah, it's like it's just.
but
like
that's how
just
this
that
game
dead
felt.
horse-
Is it's like I
did
feel like
sometimes.
you could have done better.
Yeah,
But
the
you
Russian
didn't
joke,
for
the
some
Russian
reason.
joke. I thought it was great in the very first, like in the introduction when they're like, oh, and it's Russian, and then you run into you run into like the Soviet. There is no game.
Oh yeah, it's like
screen.
based off of Papers, Please. They bring up
Yeah,
Papers,
right. Yeah,
Please,
it was a Papers Please reference, which was great, which was cool. And then you're like, oh, this is the Soviet guy, so this is the Russian, and then you can hear the clear difference in the Russian, right? And that made sense to me. That made sense to me. But
Yeah.
let it go then. I see.
Here's that aforementioned child that Victor was talking
Warren on the
about.
mic, huh? That's pretty cool.
So yeah,
Oh,
that's
I want to say, John, real quick. All right, that's cool, sweetheart. Yes, very cool.
that's what you wanted to say to me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Pascal, I'm gonna butcher his last name. It looks Italian, but he's French. Camisoto, or however he's gonna say his last name. I'm sorry, sir. Was the voice actor for those two titular characters, and is the director and writer of the game. So we were right. I don't know if I think originally if it was supposed to be like his first jaunt into the indie game things post Game Jam. I get it. That makes sense. But hey, man, pick one character and throw your heart and soul behind it. And then unless there was going to be like a dual identity thing, which I know wasn't the case, let's get somebody else. Get someone to work with if you
For
can,
sure.
you know?
And I've never made a game, so I don't know how hard it is. And they maybe if they had been able to pass the Kickstarter, then they would have done that. I will say that's one of the last negative things, and then I do want to get into some positive ones because I feel
Let's
like
do
we've
it.
been
Let's
dunking
do
on
it
this
before
game
we-
pretty hard. Towards the end of the game, he does make a couple of references to the fact that the developer didn't get the game funded through Kickstarter, through crowdfunding. Towards the end of the game, there's a section where you're playing partially in the game and you're seeing the real world and you see the developer of the game. I don't know if that's the actual guy. I would assume that it is, judging by how much of the rest of the game he's done. And he makes a few comments about the game not getting crowdfunded, and it comes across as a joke, but it comes across as a like making a joke but really meaning it. like, oh, if you had crowdfunded this game it would have been better. I'm kidding, but no, really, you should have paid for it. Like, that's what it comes across as. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but yeah.
Well, if the number of reviews on the website, I was going to say, are indicative on Steam of how much success this guy's having, then I see no reason for there not to be a sequel and or successor to.
And I think that would be good. Like I said, I think that there are a lot of things that this guy did very well. I think whereas his, like, where we were talking about his writing and voice acting not being stellar, I think his puzzle design was actually pretty solid.
Oh yeah, yeah. The actual puzzles were great. Really, like, it was just to the point where it was frustrating. But then I wanted to look it up at some time, and I wanted to look at a hint, and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because after thinking about it just a little longer, I could get it. And that it's like that satisfaction of solving it yourself. That
Absolutely.
is what you want in a puzzle game.
Well, let me go through the things that I liked in these ones. So the beginning part of the game is pretty much what you see in the trailer. The kind of tilting loading bars and unscrewing things using random items and stuff like that. Pretty standard fare. Later on in the game, you get to the next part, which is that LucasArts level one. I thought that one was pretty cool. One of the twists that they did in this one was you're playing it on like an old monitor, and the twist on it is that you can rotate the monitor and look at the back of the screen. So you're kind of playing on both sides of the set. And I thought that was a really creative twist on it. I thought it had some cool stuff. We mentioned the Legend of Zelda one. I really enjoyed that one. I actually, while I was playing that part, was like, I could see a whole game of you playing a Legend of Zelda type game, but indirectly, like not controlling Link, but controlling the environments and stuff. I could see that being done very well. There were a few parts where it lagged a little bit, or where it like chugged a little bit, but overall, I thought that section was really fun. It had some really creative puzzles in it. It had some really clever twists of how you did things, and even some jokes like where he's trying to pull out the Master Sword and it's just not working, and you're like, oh, maybe this guy's not the... Maybe he's not the hero that we're supposed to be backing here. I thought that was cool. Like Victor said, I never felt like any of the puzzles were like so difficult or so ridiculous that you'd be like, how am I supposed to figure that out? But at the same time, they weren't very, very obvious. I feel like he balanced that line really well. The other one that I want to throw out here that was one of my favorite parts of the game is there are a couple ones where you have to pay attention to things like the music or what's going past the foreground or background, and I thought those were good. I won't spoil how you do anything with those, but he does use music in a very interesting way, and the foreground and background in very interesting ways. But the one level that I was very impressed with, that I think to me was the highlight of the game, and Victor's right about to get to this part of the game, so he hasn't seen it yet. But there is a part where you are watching credits to the game, and it's a stage of the game, and how you play that stage is the credits will go up and down the screen. You have buttons to rewind or fast forward them, which I think the whole game could have used, to be perfectly honest, like speed up and slow down stuff. But when you have the names of the people in different jobs, the names are not the actual people who created the game. They have like different aspects or traits to them. And where you put them in the credits will change what the credits look like. So for example, one of the jobs will be like, character design. And whichever name you put in that character design slot will change what you're seeing on the screen. And I thought that part was really clever. I've never played a puzzle part like that, and I really, really enjoyed that. I think that if you are someone who likes puzzle games, you will enjoy this game. You will enjoy the different challenges that they throw. And like we said, there are a few that repeat and a few that go on too long, but I think the ones that are clever enough to keep it interesting and keep you going through the game. I really think that the main thing that hurt it is just honestly the story. I wish there was a way to skip through the dialogue, because unfortunately there isn't. You have to listen to the dialogue at the pace that it's being read, with the pauses in between stuff. And there are parts where the conversation is important, and if you miss something, you have to wait till it loops all the way back around. And it kills it. It kills the pacing on what otherwise would have been a very solid puzzle game.
All right, I think you have said it all, sir. I think there's a lot to say, and more than anything, Draw Me a Pixel is on the right track. This is, I mean, like, if you want to talk, another good positive is if we're looking at everything, the art style, the direction, and from the artistic side of things, it was great. Nothing looked out of place. Everything I love. I mean, it's pixel art and it's gorgeous, and I mean, really well done. They really nailed the feel, and this is maybe one of the reasons that I feel like it's easy to be so judgmental, because we can see how much quality there is in a lot of how this game is created.
Exactly. Like, if it was just a bad game, you'd be like, "Oh, it's just bad. Yeah, don't play."
No, this is a really well designed game, and in a lot of ways, it's like it's so close to being an amazing game. It's so close. So I'm excited to see what comes out next.
For sure.
From that studio, 100%. And in the meantime,
I would definitely get the next game that he plays, just out of the pure curiosity of what he learned from this one, and what.
And if you're gonna get it, don't get it on the Switch. Just, if you have a computer, play it on PC. It's gonna be a better experience. So
absolutely,
there you go.
Yep, I would say for this one, in general, if you're not a puzzle game person, it's a pass. If you are a puzzle game person, might be a sale game, or Steam sale, or if it's on sale. It's not a particularly expensive game, but
not a must buy, but not a bad experience.
Yes, that's it in a nutshell. So take that as you will. So that's going to be the end of this one. I think for our next game, Victor, you had pointed one out. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, we'll get into that in our our preview episode soon. It's called Round, and I think Rounds, maybe? I think that's right, Rounds.
Something like that. We always butcher the name, so that's
yeah, I know, right? Yeah. It's a combat shooter. It's like a 1v1 really
roguelike combat shooter.
Yeah. It looks cool.
It looks interesting. Cool. It looks very fun. So we'll get our impressions video out to you guys soon. And look forward to Rounds, if that's what it's called. Soon.
Right.
I guess you'll find
stay
out
classy.
in the next video.
Stay
see you guys
safe.
next time.
We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.